Hey babes, welcome or welcome back to and everything in between. I'm Victoria, your host and guide for navigating the beautiful chaos of your 20s. Whether you're building your dream career, figuring out relationships, or just trying to find you, this is your space for self-growth, real talk, and a little fun along the way. Let's dive into it and everything in between. At any event that I go to and I start chatting it up with someone, I get a good vibe, things are going well. I'm typically that person who asks, "So, what's your sign?" I know it's cringe, but I don't care. If I ask someone this question, it's because I'm looking for information, and their answers usually tell me a lot. A response to this question helps me understand if someone is introspective, if they're open, if they're religious, and even if they're grounded in reality. This information also helps me understand more about this person, and I'll tell you how. But first, let's start with the basics. What even is astrology? At its core, astrology is the study of how what's happening up in the sky mirrors what's happening down here on Earth. It's not about predicting your future with a crystal ball or with a psychic, but more about noticing patterns and how cosmic energy shows up in our everyday lives. The version of astrology that most of us are familiar with actually goes way back, like back to ancient Egypt. These civilizations each had their own way of observing the stars, and eventually these approaches blended into what we now call Hellenistic astrology, which is the foundation of the most modern day astrology. In quote unquote Western countries, we tend to look at what's called Western astrology or tropical astrology, which is a system of astrology that bases its zodiac on the Earth's seasons and the sun's position relative to the Earth. Unlike astrology or Eastern astrology, which is based on the position of stars and constellations, Western astrology uses the seasons as the reference point for the zodiac signs. Here's how it works. Every birth chart, which is basically your cosmic blueprint, is made up of four key things. Number one, we start with the planets. The planets represents the energies and forces that are made up in your birth chart. Number two, the zodiac signs. This is what I like to call the flavor of the energies that make up your chart. So the sign brings in style that is being carried out in a specific house where a planet lies. And getting into that, next is the houses or the areas of life that your chart talks about. So there are 12 houses, and each of them represents a specific thing or ruler of an aspect of your life, like love and career and home. And lastly are the aspects. So this is how the planets interact with each other in your chart. So there are aspects like squares or trines, which I honestly won't get into in this podcast because that's a lot more in depth. But know that when you're looking at your chart, it's important to know that there are aspects or relationships that the planets have to one another that also play a role in your overall chart description. And when you put all of this together, you get the intricate map of your life. Your birth chart is quite literally a snapshot of where everything in the sky was the moment that you came to life, the moment that you were born. And astrologers use that to understand your personality, your strengths, your challenges, and even your purpose. Okay, here's the next big question that I feel I get asked a lot. And I am not an astrologer. Big disclaimer. I'm just a girl who really appreciates having giving insight into myself and other people in whatever form that may be. And astrology is a really great way to get that, amongst other things. But the question that people ask me for whatever reason is, how does astrology actually work? I had to consult other astrologers about this and the internet because I honestly didn't really know how it works. I just trusted. But for those of you who are wondering, okay, you just told me like what it is, but what does that mean in reality? Here you go. So the honest answer is that we don't really know. And that is part of the beauty of it. Some people just like say it's the energy. Others point to gravitational pulls or patterns that humanity has observed over centuries. And I think that that is definitely the most common observation of astrology. But the most ancient ideas that underpins astrology is quite literally this phrase: as above, so below. Basically, what's happening in the sky reflects what's happening in our lives. Not in a the planets made you do it kind of way, but more like a mirror, okay? It's a mirror. The planets aren't causing things to happen, they are reflecting what's happening or echoing them. Take, I don't know, Mars, for example. Mars has long been linked to conflict, fire, sharpness, aggressiveness, even breakups. Not because Mars is out here like starting drama, but because historically this has been seen and recorded over centuries that when Mars is active, we often feel the energy like conflict, fire, breakups, things like that show up in our lives or on the world stage. Some people think astrology works because we want it to. And honestly, that's valid. Like, you can think yourself into delusion. But even if it is magical thinking or a manifestation, it's been used for thousands of years, okay? It's been used for thousands of years to help people make sense of their lives. And it gives language to things that we sometimes don't know how to express. So, when it's used along with intention, astrology can help you reflect, find meaning, and feel more grounded in your own story. And that's what I personally really appreciate about astrology. It's not the thing that dictates who a person is or what exactly will happen, but it helps to give a little more information and clarity to general things. So, yeah, astrology doesn't control you. It helps you understand yourself better, and I think that that's magic within itself. So, let's talk about something that comes up all the time when people start getting into astrology: your big three. Have you ever been asked, so what's your big three? I'm sure you have at least once. Your big three encompasses your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. So, what do these even mean? Think of your sun sign as your core essence. It's your identity, your ego, your sense of self, kind of like the energy you radiate when you're feeling most aligned or at home with yourself. It's the sign most people are familiar with because it's quite literally based on your birthday. So when someone says, like, I'm a Leo or I'm a Scorpio, that's their sun sign. They know that because they were born on, I don't know, Scorpio is like November. So if you're born on November 5th, your sun sign is a Scorpio. But there's so many more signs that make up who you are that can help you feel more aligned and clear on who you are, because your sun sign, once again, it's your ego, okay? So it doesn't incorporate your feelings, like your emotional sense of self or your how you show up in relationships. Like that's not in the ego. So it's a very broad way to describe your personality, and a lot of people sometimes don't feel like their sun sign reflects who they are. They may feel like their moon moon sign reflects more of who they are, which we'll get into now. Your moon sign is your emotional world, okay? It rules how you process your feelings and what makes you feel safe or comforted and how you nurture yourself or others. It's the you that people don't always see unless they're really close to you. So, you know how, I don't know, one of my friends, they just said, like, I usually come off really shy unless you crack me open and then you really get to understand him as a person. That's probably because they're just a more guarded person, but underneath, people don't get to see their emotional self, which is a beautiful thing, but their sun sign wouldn't allow you to understand that emotional self. So it's really important to put all of the pieces together so that you can have a more holistic picture. Your moon sign is your inner landscape, basically, your emotional habits and your instinctive reactions. And then the last part of your big three is your rising sign, also known as your ascendant. This is the sign that was on the eastern horizon, the exact moment you were born. So it shapes the way the world sees you, your vibe, your appearance, your first impressions. Some people say that your rising sign is like the mask that you wear when you're meeting people for the first time, but it's a lot more than that. It's definitely the lens through which you approach life. It influences your style, your attitude, and the way that you naturally move through the world. Personally, and I'll get a little more deep into this, but I did not feel connected to my rising sign until a couple of years ago, maybe 1 year ago. I am a Virgo rising, and that means that people typically see me as organized and structured and ambitious and goal oriented. And I have never wanted to be seen that way. It's not a bad thing at all, but I have always seen myself as someone who's fun and carefree and worldly and just like exciting. And I don't think about that when I think about Virgos. So it always it had a bad taste in my mouth that I am a Virgo and that's how people saw me. But recently, I've definitely started to appreciate it a lot more. And I see the benefits of being a Virgo rising because it's helped me a lot in my career. It's helped me a lot in identify my style. Like when I moved to New York and I was trying to figure out, like, who is this version of me that's moving to New York City? Like, who is she going to be? What does she wear? What does she like to do? And my rising sign definitely helped me identify that and feel safe in that because, like I said, Virgos are typically like, they're minimalist, they are organized and classic. And I definitely identify my style in that way and feel really comfortable in like minimal dressing and being a little more upscale and classic. Yeah, so there are definitely incredible things that knowing what your signs mean wherever they are placed can help you in different aspects and areas of your life. So, together, your sun, moon, and rising, these three things give a deeper, fuller picture of who you are. It's not just, I'm a Gemini, and that's it. Astrology is about layering and the nuance, truly, the little minor details. So, your big three tells a story about your outward energy, your inner emotional world, and the way that you engage with life. So the next time someone asks you what your sign is, tell them your big three. It tells them a lot more of the story. And now you'll be able to understand what it means when other people tell you. So what am I and how do I relate to all this? So I discovered astrology very early on in my life. I can't tell you when, but I'm a very spiritual person. I have my own personal relationship with God. So I'm not just like basing my entire life on astrology, and it is not my religion. I want to make that very clear. But when I discovered it, I just felt so connected to my sun sign. And I knew that there had to be a reason for this, and I needed to know more. I've always been very introspective, and I care about being able to communicate my feelings and emotions to other people so that I can be more understood and that I can understand myself better. So, astrology really helped me to be able to do this. So, yeah, I am a Libra sun, I'm a Scorpio moon, and a Virgo rising. My Libra sun is truly all about balance and beauty and connection. And I've always loved people so much. I've really value my relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, family relationships, all incredibly important to me. And finding balance is has always been a huge theme in my life. Yeah, at my core, I really care about fairness and aesthetics, and I'm always trying to see both sides of any situation. That's the part of me that's like diplomatic and curious and always drawn to having meaningful conversations. Yeah, just caring about community on a personal level and a bigger level. And then I'm a Scorpio moon, so that means that behind the scenes, I am emotionally intense and intuitive. I have a very strong intuition. I'm also a very private person. Scorpio moons feel everything. And if you are a Scorpio moon, you will relate to that sentence on an extremely deep level. Every Scorpio moon, a lot of my like closest friends are Scorpio moons, and we have just the like deepest of feelings, but we don't always show it. We definitely crave depth and realness, and we thrive in the like uncomfortable stuff and transformation because that's what Scorpios do. They're all about like transformation and change and the underworld. Scorpio rules the underworld and death, and yeah, so like we're just really deep. I think that that's where a lot of my inner strength comes from also. So I just have an ability to read the room even when nothing's being said, which I definitely attribute to my strong intuition that comes from my Scorpio moon. And then lastly, my Virgo rising. So apparently, this is the vibe that I give off that I have grown to love. Virgo energy is grounded and observant for sure. People might meet me and think that I have it all together or that I am super detail oriented. And in a lot of ways, I definitely am, especially like in the sense of my career and my job. But Virgo rising also means that I show up wanting to be of service and to support people and to organize and to make things better and more intentional and feel more aligned. So, yeah, astrology gives you this layered, nuanced map of who you are. And that's what I love about it. Of course, as a Scorpio moon, it's not about putting yourself in a box. It's about learning what's in your toolkit and how you can use it. How can you find your birth chart and information related to you? First of all, delete CoStar, okay? I know you have it. Delete it. CoStar is known to fearmonger, to keep you interested in their app. Their creator literally confessed this on a podcast that they were on. So, and no real astrologer that I trust backs this app. So, there's that. I personally love the Chani app. That's CHANI, and you can find incredible articles from an astrologer that I know and love deeply and personally, Lisa Stardust, who writes for publications from Teen Vogue to Refinery 29 to The Today Show. You can find her on Instagram at Lisa Stardust Astro. No spaces, all one word. Go follow her. We love Lisa. There's so much that you can discover from astrology. It does not just end with your 3 signs, but your birth chart is definitely a great place to start. So download the Chani app today. Go get some insight into your life. life, you'll be able to learn so much about yourself and hopefully about the people around you that you love so that you can build stronger relationships with them and be able to understand them a little better because that's what life is about. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you or would be helpful for someone you know, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube and share it with a friend. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at and.everything.inbetween for updates, and you can find me on Instagram at victoria.liverpool. This podcast is sound designed and edited by Misty Avenger. Music for this podcast is The Dude by Matt Large, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Details provided in the description. Remember, episodes drop weekly on Sundays at 7 p.m. Until then, keep growing, glowing, and remember, you got this.